the moment our fellow geeks, dweebs, nerds, and other unfortunates have been fervently waiting for has finally arrived. It's time for TMI, Confessionals of the Nerd Kind. And now, your hosts, Jeff Nerfherder Chandler, Jim Kaiju Baker, and now, let's get on with the show. Here is TMI.
Business at hand. Business at hand.
We got things to do. Movies to talk about.
Yeah, we're back to our normally scheduled programming after our 5 Bucket Club induction last week of Jurassic Park.
That wiped me out. That was a lot of paper I put down. I hope we did it justice.
It always feels like we don't, you know?
I know. The thing is that, you know, it's funny. There's another podcast that I just started listening to. I was holding off. I followed this girl on Instagram, Verbal Diorama. And she gets a lot of praise. She's an independent podcaster, and she does these deep dives on these movies. And I'm always resistant to like listen to what we do because I don't want to be influenced by any. But I finally listened. She did a whole episode on Star Trek: The Motion Picture, but she really gets in the weeds.
Yeah,
a lot of the tech stuff, and it's fascinating because you know the whole back history of that movie in particular. Leading into it, and a lot of people are like, well, you know, if Star Wars didn't come around, it's like this thing was in development long before Star Wars dropped.
Well, Star Trek existed a long time before Star Wars was.
It had its, you know, as Ian Malcolm said, you know, it had its chance, and it God selected it for. Well, they were. It was all set to be a second series with Decker and Ilea in the lead, and not have any of the major characters. So it went through a lot of iterations.
Such an esoteric movie for like a kid to go see. So
that's just it. Cause my uncle and my stepfather were Trekkies. And so we always watched it. And it just, to me, it was like watching paint dry. It just was, especially after comparing it to Star Wars.
I know. After going to see that, it's like, I want to watch The Black Hole again, not this. If I got the choice on HBO, you know,
but I think I have newfound appreciation for it because a lot of the people that were involved in it were really kind of leaning into like the 2001, especially like the Doug Trumbull, you know, the reveal of the Enterprise and those long camera shots, those beautiful camera shots of the ship in dry dock. It is very drawn out, and I guess there is a director's cut out there now that was assembled a couple years ago and is on a Blu-ray. And
are we ever going to talk Star Trek: The Motion Picture? Like, I
think we have to at some point. I've always been resistant. We don't talk Trek on here at all because I feel like I'm the only Trekkie or the one who's actually.
Well, didn't we cover
interested.
At least one of the new ones, or didn't we even get that far?
No, we've never covered, not even the J.J. Abrams, which I actually have. I like that a lot.
Yeah, well, so do I.
Thought that was
well,
strong.
You know, they righted whatever wrongs, perceived or imperceived, with Star Trek II, Wrath of Khan, because that was...
the idea is that every other movie is good.
Yeah.
So,
because I remember seeing that as a kid, I'm like, that's what I'm talking about. And then going to see Star Trek 3.
Yeah, search for Spock. Oh, look, there he is.
Yeah.
Even like 6 on Discover Country, we're actually going to mention that because David Warner plays Gorgon.
This guy's showing up in like all our movies.
I know. It's too bad he passed away in 22.
I still cannot think of him anything other than Jack the Ripper when I think of him in Time After Time.
I was thinking Time Bandits, right? He's
evil incarnate in Time Bandits.
Evil, yeah.
But what are we talking about today on today's episode?
Pixar. We actually went back to the theater and we saw a Pixar movie.
Since last time was Elemental, right? Last time?
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You had to bring it up, didn't you?
I should watch that again, really. Maybe I just gave that a bad review because of the circumstances. There was a lot of very noisy people. It wasn't just kids. You know, I accept going into a kid's movie that there's going to be kids, but when the parents are talking louder than the kids are,
Oh yeah, you gotta.
no.
But that just
no.
means that it wasn't holding anybody's attention. That's the problem. But, yeah,
But I think it had a second life on Disney Plus, so a lot of people are probably pointing their fingers at us right now.
could be. That's fine. Not that we'll ever hear it. No one's ever gone online and been like, I finally
send us-
listened to your episode, and I think you guys are full of crap.
Send us an angry email.
You got a stick shoved up your buttocks.
Mm.
Inside Out 2, freshly minted right off the presses.
Oh man, I was so ready to cry at this movie. I was girding myself, that the waterworks are going to start.
Yeah, no, and they do. You've pointed it out numerous times that some of these studios go out of their way to try and force the waterworks.
Whitewashing.
Twice in this movie.
Oh, so you notice it now. You notice it now.
Oh, I'm very aware of it. And of course, I actually dragged my wife to the movie. She actually came with me. She has not sat in the theater with me since Ghostbusters Afterlife, and she fell asleep. This one she did not fall asleep.
I don't blame her for that one.
Wow. So yeah, we all know that Inside Out is near and dear to you. So I'm curious to see where you sit with this.
Yes.
I
was curious. I was curious as well.
Pixar
where it
just
was.
phoning it in yet again, just another sequel, because we saw trailers. Moana 2.
Moviegoer reactions are anything to go by. It's blown up. Theater goers want to see this. So now they upped those projections to, they're thinking that it's going to end between 130 and 150 million the weekend.
For opening weekend.
Yeah.
Which
it's
is pretty
already 2024. It's the biggest opening weekend.
Right. All right. So let's get into that, because that ties in directly with our news. And what are we doing on the back end? We actually, if you're new to this show, we actually cover 2 movies.
Yes. Like a drive-in theater, a double feature.
Yes.
Let's all go to the lobby.
Oh, wait, is that copyright? No.
It could be. Who knows? Somebody out there.
We usually choose one new minted movie and then pair it up with a classic feature
that in some way goes along with it
somehow. Yeah. Sometimes it's on the nose. Sometimes it's a no-brainer like this one.
So, Inside Out is all about our girl Riley and what's going on inside her head. So why don't we pick another movie about what's going on in someone's head, and an actor that's near and dear to us.
I don't think we've never covered a Steve Martin movie.
Are you serious?
I think of one. No.
I guess you're right.
That's crazy. Man with Two Brains.
This may be considered like a lost movie, a forgotten movie from the 80s.
It is. There was like 4 right there in that window that he made with Carl Reiner, and Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid. Coming off The Jerk, but
the Jerk was that's his signature, even though it's one of his first movie roles. That's his signature role.
That was out of the gate, baby.
Yeah. Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid was a hard sell, black and white. It's a noir spoof, so that has a niche audience already. This
is kind of a weird spoof.
It is. He gives props to brain movies, like he calls out Donovan's brain.
Right.
There's a subgenre of brain movies, and Donovan's brain being maybe the first. But so this is a sci-fi spoof. And then, of course, you're talking about Steve Martin and Carl Reiner. Then they followed that up with All of Me, which is
actually a movie I know much better than this one.
I've never seen The Man with Two Brains before this.
Ever. I have to say I have seen it, but I couldn't, until this viewing, I couldn't have pulled anything out except for the elevator killer, which doesn't make any sense. It's just so nonsensical.
If you weren't alive in the 70s or early 80s, you will not know what the ending means.
I'll never forget the day I had to explain to my intern who Ed McMahon was when he passed away.
That's on the back end. The Man with Two Brains.
So there you go. Let's do a little bit of news. So I only have one article here, but it does tie into what we're talking about as far as people showing up for this theater showing, which is Sony Pictures has acquired Alamo Drafthouse. Did you hear this? Do you know this at all?
I did read an article about this. Yeah.
So if you're not aware, Alamo Drafthouse is kind of like this boutique theater. They cater to really much to the theater experience. Nice plush seats. You get to reserve. Long before COVID, these guys, you walked in, you actually reserved your seats. Dining, you got food services, you get your drinks. They have a very, very tight and no talking, no texting policy. I believe there was a story once where Madonna was actually kicked out of an Alamo Drafthouse for texting. I've never been to one, to be honest with you. We have one in Yonkers down here. I have yet to ever be one.
Yeah, that's too far for me to go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously during COVID, they were all shut down and whatever. So there's 35 locations. The headquarters are in Austin, Texas. And if you ever followed Ain't It Cool News back in the day, that was kind of like their go-to place when they used to do their button-umathons, movie, screenings and all this stuff. So it really had kind of like this allure to it. So Sony has picked them up, and I have to say this sounds like it's a good thing, because there were rules in place for a while where studios were not allowed to purchase theaters.
Rightly so, right?
Right. And then that kind of went away, I think, in 2020. But so Netflix owns a couple theaters in LA and New York. Amazon also owns one in California. This Sony, so it's underneath this new branch called the Sony Pictures Experiences. And what they've done is they've kind of started experimenting with some of these live spaces. So they've done these interactive, what they refer to as immersive entertainment, with Chicago, Wonderverse Chicago, where they had Ghostbusters and a Jumanji, like a virtual reality interactive experience. There was a Zombieland themed bumper cars, and they have a Bad Boys racing simulator, as well as other things that are tied in movie wise. They even had like a traveling Wheel of Fortune thing. So they're trying different stuff.
Wait a second. A Bad Boys racing simulator.
Yeah,
you're
probably
like
outrunning the cops.
Martin Lawrence's voice cursing every 2 minutes
while throwing candy out the window. I don't know. I'm not really sure. Zombieland, are you chasing after a giant Twinkie? So I thought this was interesting because we just saw last week, I think, the Paramount and Sundance were looking to do this big merger, and that just fell apart. So at the end of this article I was reading on Variety, they actually had a poll. How likely are you to go out and see a movie in theater this week? There were 8,220 responses. 14% said very likely. 65% said not at all likely.
Not bloody likely.
Well, good day, sir.
Yeah, that was the third choice, actually.
Yeah. So, right. So here in black and white, people are like, I'm not going back to the theater. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden we're seeing this influx for this movie. So there is, I mean, when we get into Inside Out, I do have a theater story. It's not actually my story, but it's telling, I think.
But there's all sorts of moral implications of Sony buying a theater chain. Are they going to unfairly spotlight their movies?
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to show your movie. I'm going to show mine. I just thought that was interesting. Will I ever get to an Alamo Drafthouse? Probably, maybe one day.
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe now that Sony owns it, they'll come out with more locations. That's a plus.
Maybe, yeah. As long as they adhere to the same standards. That it is, from what I'm reading, it's not going to get rebranded, Sony Drafthouse. So there you go. So do we want to go Inside Out now?
Let's go Inside Out.
I'm assuming that you did go back and watch the original Inside Out.
No, there was no need. I've seen it so many times. There was no need.
I took this as an opportunity to sit down with the missus and we watched it. And, like you said, it hits all the spots where you prepare the tissues because they're playing you. But that was 9 years ago. This is 2015.
I saw it 3 times at the drive-in when it was in theater. And then we got the 3D Blu-ray.
Okay.
And
I did see that
many times.
There was a 3D screening of Inside Out 2 in my theater.
Oh.
But I did not partake in that.
Mm-hmm.
But what I wanted to bring up was I went with my wife on Saturday. Now this dropped Thursday night. my son and his friends went to the theater on Friday night to go and finally catch up with Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. And he said they walked into the theater and it was a madhouse. He said it was wall-to-wall people. They were all teenage kids. And he said they were all there to go see Inside Out too. And it was very apparent that half of them had never walked into a theater before. He said they were very confused as to how this whole thing worked, where they went, where do they buy their tickets? What? There's food. I can get food.
Kids swinging on chandeliers, dogs and cats living in harmony.
Dogs and cats, mass chaos. But that's exactly what he painted. He was like, my son and his buddies have been going to the movie theater for quite some time, and yet he said they walked in and it was just unbridled chaos. He said it was crazy. And that's a good thing. You got kids who are actually, you know what? I don't want to wait to see this on Disney Plus at 6 months. 9 years ago, I was 9 years old. I was 6 years old. Now I want to go see this movie. Mm-hmm. So as you said, based on box office reports, people are going to theater.
So was your showing a matinee?
We had very first showing, which was 10:30.
So was mine. So was mine on
10:30,
Saturday.
10:30. Yeah. And there probably was, I'm going to say 50 plus people. And I just had to make sure that my wife had the seat on the end aisle so that no stinky people sat next to her.
Same. And it wasn't, for me, it was just like you, it wasn't a packed theater. Yeah, it was decent for a 10:30 a.m. showing. Yeah. But it was from what I was seeing in the line in front of me was like a single mom with about 6 different teenage girls.
Yeah, she drew the short straw.
It took forever because, of course, the mom has to ask every individual girl, what do you want? And then the girl goes and gets that girl's popcorn. Okay, what do you want? And the girl goes and gets, and it's only like 2 people that were manning the counter. Yeah. So it took me forever to get to the actual register.
Anybody buying those anger popcorn buckets?
No, because if you buy one of those popcorn buckets, you can't reuse it. You have to buy the special Regal reusable popcorn bucket in order to refill it. And if I'm wrong about that, please tell me. Really? Please somebody email. But I went on because I have my old the Marvels tin popcorn bucket. I'm like, we're just going to bring this. Let me just go online to make sure that we can reuse these. The only Regal popcorn bucket that you can reuse is the special reusable popcorn bucket that costs more.
The square one. Well, lack of a better.
Yes.
Yeah. But I can go into I can get a large bucket, go into the theater, empty it out into little paper bags for all of my kids, and then walk back out and get a refill.
But I don't think that you can walk in with your own popcorn bucket, like fresh off the street.
Is that like a sanitary thing?
I don't know, but I saw nothing that indicated it. The only thing that they're really trying to push you towards buying that more expensive square popcorn bucket.
Refill.
That's made to be reusable.
So you can bring that in every time.
Yeah.
Listen, that's where they're making their money right now, is all these tchotchke things and T-shirts and whatnot.
But then you're like, what do I do with this now? This thing.
I know. And then just like the bags when you go grocery shopping, you forget it on the counter anyways. You get halfway to the theater, you're like, got it. No popcorn today, kids.
So when you're showing 10:30 a.m., kids, teenagers, what did you have?
It was a lot of families. A lot of mom and dads with kids. For the most part, the kids were, right in tune with this movie. Toward the end, there was a bunch of them running up and down the aisle, which I don't care. It's a kids movie. It's not meant for me.
When you go out to a theater, you're happy to see kids too. Kids movies,
exactly.
Right?
Like I said, I was tickled to hear the story. My son comes back and he was like, "Dad, you it was insane." And I'm like, "Well, that's good. That's a good thing." There was one other dad, and we were completely in sync. Every dad joke in this movie got a large chuckle from the two of us. We were like Waldorf and Statler up there. Just anytime Dad opened his mouth and made some kind of stupid dad joke.
Whenever you watch a sitcom in the studio audience, there's always that guy that's laughing louder than everybody else.
Speaking of sitcoms, isn't this basically, was it Head of the Class? No, not Head of the Class. Herman's Head.
Herman
Fox emotions that are all hanging out. And
I was going to say, I don't think anybody ever cried watching Herman's Head, but I could be wrong about that.
I did. So I do remember liking that show a lot.
It goes along with Toy Story 3, the first Inside Out. And we're not here to talk about that today, but we will talk about it at some point in depth. But that hits all the parental buttons, especially, if you are watching that for the first time and you happen to have a young child. It was perfect when it came out because my son was 4 or 5.
Right.
So the memory of him as an infant was still very fresh in our minds.
9 years later, you're dealing with exactly even though I think there's only 2 years, there's like a 2-year difference in the movie world, but it's not been 9 years.
But you meet Riley as an infant at the beginning of Inside Out. So it kind of fast forwards till when she's 10 or 11 or what have you.
Yep. Yeah, because she turns 13 in this one.
Yeah. So, and this one is squarely set while she's 13. So it's dealing with a very specific, weekend while she's 13 years old. It's funny that it followed me, the movie. So I think, though, I still hold the original in high regard. I'm just going to say this right up front. I don't think it surpasses the original Inside Out. I think that you would have to do a lot of song and dance and whatever juggling on one foot in order to do that.
Okay.
So I'm not denigrating it for that. I didn't think that it would. So I think that the first one speaks more to the parent in the audience, while this one, I think, squarely speaks more to the teen in the audience.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we've all been there with the puberty. And I think in the first one, my favorite parts are when they cut to the mom or the dad and their internal emotions. And that's, to me, is a large part of that fun, is reacting to each other. And you do get that in this one as well.
Yeah, and they try to dial back, because when mom and dad in the first one, you see the inside their heads, of course you're going to think in this one, well, where were all these other emotions in their heads in the first one? Yeah.
Well, they've suppressed them.
Yeah.
Just like, I can't wait for the third movie to come out, where you just have to deal with all new emotions, hopelessness, utter indifference, and resignation.
Right. In the original draft, there were supposed to be nine emotions.
That's crazy. Yeah. No, that's too many.
As a moviegoer, you wouldn't be able to keep track of 9 new emotions.
Correct. No, I think this is fantastic. I'm going to say it right now. This was a solid sequel.
In terms of where it rests on my Pixar hierarchy, I would still say it's in top 5.
Especially after we kind of crapped all over Elementals. And we did, we talked Turning Red. I did like that. But this is a return to form. Now, we didn't get a Pixar short up front. But
no, we haven't for a while, have we?
No, but we did get John Ratzenberger back, because they let him go for a while. And I think he is the magic sauce right there. You bring in Ratzenberger and all is well in the universe.
But yet we don't have the Pizza Planet truck.
I didn't catch it, but then again, I wasn't looking for it.
I went online to see, okay, where was it in this one? Because I didn't see it. And according to all sources, it's not in there. It's
really?
Not there. Yeah.
You're talking about a bunch of little teenage girls at a hockey camp. You can't have the pizza truck in the parking lot.
They could be wrong.
They're in the car. They're literally in the car driving. Why the pizza truck could have driven past.
It's like forgetting the popcorn tin. You know what we forgot?
Oh, we forgot
after the movie's over. Yeah, after the Pizza production Planet. Is over. It's too late now.
Oh, I can put it in post.
Yeah.
Yes.
But a lot of the ingredients, surprisingly, from the first one are not here in this one. I'm talking specifically about the voice cast.
Only in doing research for this did I realize that Bill Hader and Mindy Kaling are not playing those two characters, because I don't think I would have noticed.
I knew right away that it wasn't Bill Hader. I was convinced that was Mindy Kaling, and it was not. Disgust is now played by Liza Lapira.
Yeah.
Doing a really good Mindy Kaling, by the way, because, again, I did not notice a difference. But it's Tony Hale, who you may remember from Arrested Development and the Julia Louis-Dreyfus show Veep. He's now doing Fear, and he brings his own thing to it. He's not trying to do a Bill Hader.
No, but I literally watched these, one day apart from each other, and it didn't take it away from me at all.
But yeah, supposedly it was due to price disputes.
We all know how this goes. They're not multi-billion-dollar budgets, and you're either on board with this stuff or you're not. I mean, we saw it with Marvel.
And it could have been, and I could be wrong, that I think what I read, and I don't know if this is accurate, but Amy Poehler was offered $5 million to come back as Joy. And,
is that what it is? Maybe it was
the other
pay
original
dispute, they weren't offered as much.
Yeah, I will
say this, which is Joy is front and center in the first movie. She is the main character, and I love the fact that this character Joy, it doesn't matter. Like I guess in your brain, no matter what your circumstances, you want to try and find joy in it. And there's a heartbreaking moment in this where they're just like, I guess that's what it's like to grow up. You just have less joy, and you're like, oh, that sucks, because that's right.
But it's right.
It's right. Now, is it the same girl playing Riley? That I didn't check into. It sounds like her. I don't know. Pete Docter directed the first one. He's only executive produced this one. Kelsey Mann, this is his first. This is the one thing I love about Pixar. So this guy started out as an animator, and then I think he was a writer on The Good Dinosaur. And they're like, yeah, we're gonna throw you a movie, just like Pete Docter started out the same way.
Right? Yeah, a storyboard artist as well.
Yeah, crazy. So, but I'm gonna say it right now. Maya Hawke is amazing. She plays Anxiety, and she has been all over my radar in the last week or so. And she must be out promoting this movie because she's been on The Daily Show. She was on another podcast I was listening to, and she is fantastic.
I was having anxiety trying to place this voice, and I didn't know who it was until the credits.
I knew who it was, but it doesn't matter because she just there's parts in this movie where Riley's literally grabbing her chest like she's gonna go full on scanners and her head's gonna blow up, and you're just like, because anxiety is taking over, and I'm like, holy crap, this is so well done. Now it's a little over the top, especially when she's in the penalty box at the end of the movie.
She's about to have a panic attack.
Yeah, you're a 13-year-old.
Yeah,
that's a long 2-minute penalty box because she every emotion you could possibly think. I don't remember puberty being quite that chaotic, but I've never been a 13-year-old little girl either. It's amazing because you get to those points in your life. Even as a grown man, I can relate to some of this stuff, going off to college. And it's like, all right, you're now being presented with a whole new world of people that you're a blank slate. You can be whoever and whatever you want to be in order to make these people like you, and that's what she's trying to do at the expense of pushing away her two best friends.
Yeah. Because in this case, it's Riley moving up to high school. But the added facet of this is she's on a hockey team with these two other girls, her best friends, who, aren't the popular girls, right? They're kind of the outsiders. So they're so good at what they do in terms of hockey that they get picked to go to hockey camp with the high school girls. So Riley now, season in with those cool new older high school girls. Yeah. But in order to do so, the new emotions that come in thanks to puberty are kind of pushing those other older friends to the side. So there's an inner turmoil where the old emotions are getting pushed out, the new emotions come in, and at the same time,
bottle them up. Bottle up the emotions.
And she's doing the same thing externally to her old friends.
Yeah, Grace and Bree, right?
Yeah.
What was the name of the girl that the high school girl that she
Val, right? Val. Her name was Val.
Yeah.
But also another big change is Michael Giacchino, who was the composer, who's now like a big shot director, right?
Yeah.
We've all seen Werewolf by Night. He didn't come back for the sequel, and his score to the original Inside Out was so moving. All it takes are those few notes of that theme to get my waterworks going.
Yeah.
And thankfully they do play it over the Disney, right? The Disney logo. So I'm like, oh, here it comes.
Here it comes.
But you don't hear it again, really, until
I mean, is the soundtrack of a 9-year-old the same as a 13-year-old?
No, but it's important to me, and this is
But it was
Inside Out
there.
too.
So the one thing I thought was great was Andrea Dotzman took over, and she did take cues from him, but she studied underneath Giacchino. She was a score coordinator on Star Trek Into Darkness and Star Trek Beyond. But I loved the score. I thought it just like it was very uplifting, and it actually made me feel like it was reminiscent of like Bugs Bunny and Roadrunner cartoons for some reason. Like that was the flavor I was getting from it.
But I don't think it was especially, maybe it'll take more viewings. I don't think it was especially memorable like the first one was. Like that was like an earworm, that theme to the first movie. And I didn't get anything here from that. Again, maybe it'll take a second or third viewing for me to, to fully appreciate it. But yeah, we get the opening Disney logo, which is the
100th anniversary one.
100th anniversary, because you go over the landscape, and it is very dramatic, right? So it does really set the scene. And then you get Riley reintroduction with, it's the same emotions that we're familiar with in from Inside Out. Tellingly, because if you remember, I know you do because you just watched the first one, but, just talking to the general listeners out there, if you remember in the first one, Riley had different personality islands that she had, that the emotions wanted to maintain for her. And she still has Family Island, but tellingly, it's
more
tiny.
Like an atoll. It's not, it's
and they
not
never
really an island.
I wanted them to come back to that, to maybe give a little explanation.
Yeah, those islands were very important in the first movie.
Yeah,
especially when they started crumbling. Not so much in this one. Obviously, we had to deal a lot more with like her core. Yeah, like Joy was actually culling memories. Like, oh, these unwanted, embarrassing memories, we're just going to shoot them to the back of our mind and forget about them, which we all do. Yep. Until they come screaming.
Suppressed, right? Suppressed memories.
Yeah.
So Joy thinks she's doing Riley a favor by taking these embarrassing moments and these moments that anybody would want to forget and shoving them away.
But this is actually the one thing I will say, which is Joy's character has not changed since the first movie, because she was doing everything in her power to stop sadness from affecting the memories where they finally realized that she needed to have that emotional release. Like not everything is happy. Not like Joy does everything in her power to keep Riley uplifted and happy. And in this regard, anxiety just steps in and takes over.
Yeah. And anxiety is taking a much more proactive lead here than sadness did, because
that's how anxiety works.
Yes, and so you may ask yourself, well, didn't Joy learn her lesson from the first movie? Well, no, because it looks like anxiety is actively trying to destroy Riley. So
right,
no. So
but that's
Joy,
listen. I have a child who suffers from severe anxiety, and it's irrational. Some of the stuff that they feel and can't control, and you're just like, all right, it's not doom and gloom. Not everything is the end of the world here. But again, anxiety literally shows up with 12 things of luggage. It's like, all right, well, yeah, you're bringing baggage. And there's a lot of little throwaway jokes like that. Listen, you give me a stream of consciousness or a literal sarcasm, and I'm on board. I'm like, all right, that's good. The brainstorm. That's a brainstorm.
Yeah.
Like stuff like that. That's the stuff it just tickles me to no end. And I can't imagine being in like these planning meetings where they're coming up with storyboards.
Yeah, where somebody's just shouting out at the table. Brainstorm.
What if we
sarcasm?
Right. Yeah. The sarcasm. What is that? That's a sarcasm.
The other new idea here is the sense of self, which is represented like a little sculpture of light in the headquarters.
Yeah, this is new. This is like the centerpiece. This is more so than the islands, the individual islands that we saw in the first one.
Yes. So as Riley gets older, she's, she didn't have this when she was younger, but all of her past memories and her new memories are forming a sense of self. Like, you hear one memory over and over again, one of Riley's memories, I am a kind person. And this is a cornerstone of the sense of self. So all these key memories go to her core, and this shoot of light comes out of the memory all the way up to the headquarters to form this little beautiful
Crystal
statue of light.
Yeah.
And this is something that Joy takes it upon herself to maintain, which is when anxiety comes on the scene, because now the puberty alarm has been going off in headquarters.
What is that? Well, that's a joke at the end of the first movie when they get an upgrade on the command console and they're like, puberty? What is that? I'm sure we don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
So they literally set up the sequel right there and right then and there.
A wrecking ball at one point towards the beginning of the movie comes through.
Yeah, the little blob guys. Were those little worker guys? I can't remember. They were
there. You see them in the background, maintaining
but that was like
the memory walls.
At one point where the core, again, we talk about the fact that the core emotions get bottled up and thrown away, and they're trying to make their way back to headquarters, and they're on the other side of the sarcasm, and they're trying to reach out. They're trying to call to those worker guys who are, in their construction vehicles, and everything that they're screaming at them is coming across the chasm and being relayed in a sarcastic sense. Because what a bunch of jerks. And he gets up and walks away. They ignore him. There's so many good stuff going on here.
It's not just these random scenes. It all, just like the first Inside Out, it all fits together, for the narrative. It's not just thrown in just to have a funny scene or a clever scene.
No, right. No, it's all in service of the plot. Of these emotions they get locked away in the vault.
Not only do we have anxiety, because it's very easy for anxiety to overshadow everybody else, but we have embarrassment, who is the big pink guy who hides his face all the time.
Fantastic, by the way, without even saying a word.
Envy is another one, which is very close to disgust, but still, I'll give him envy. And ennui. Ennui.
Or as Joy likes to refer to as wee wee.
Like the always bored, too cool for school character.
Ennui is French for literally like listless, dissatisfied feeling. So she's that mopey, dreary, blue goth girl that, everything is doom and gloom and I don't care. And I'm glued to my phone, by the way.
And they are all there really to support anxiety. So they all kind of blend together because they play off each other. And they all don't really see a need for these older emotions. Unfortunately. So as you said, they're shuffled off to the vaults, to Riley's vaults, which is a really funny scene in itself, because in that vault, and I think that they could have done more with this. I was hoping to see more characters. I wanted to see
Lance/Blade. So you're bringing this character. So in this vault are like these dark secrets that she holds. And one of them, and I'm surprised because we actually saw it when she was trying to be cool with the girls at camp, and they asked her who her favorite band was, and like a boy band, and then they were making fun of her that it's a little kids band, and so then she was kind of play it off. But I'm like, wouldn't they have been? I guess they weren't dark secrets, though. Like until that moment, she listened to them unironically.
Yeah, and that created the sarcasm when she starts saying, "Oh yeah, they're so good," and suddenly when joy and sadness are walking, the ground opens up in front of them.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Grace and Bree are standing behind and go, "What are you talking about? We just went to the concert last year. We loved it. We we loved it. Yeah, jerk. We've all been there." Yeah.
But instead, who we do get in the vault is Bloofy, like a little dog who is obviously a play on Blue's Clues.
Brilliant. I was in stitches this entire sequence because my kids grew up with Blue's Clues. We grew up with Dora the Explorer. And so Bloofy has Pouchy. And in Pouchy has 3 objects that may or may not help you out. And, at one point, Bloofy's talking to the screen. He's talking to us, the audience. And Anger's like, "Who are you talking to?" And then they cut to them looking at Bloofy, looking at a wall, talking.
Because on these shows, these characters talk right to the little kids in the audience.
They break the fourth wall.
But the brilliant thing about this is that it's done in 2D animation.
Yes. Yeah, just like, well, not even Blue's Clues, more like Dora the Explorer.
Yeah.
But we also that's where we find Lance/Blade, who is this video game character that she has a crush on. But he's got
something from like a game like Super Smash Brothers or something.
Right. But he's got a really, really lame fight move He just rolls up into a ball.
Slowly rolls.
But this Belushi and Fauci, oh man, it just tickled me to no end.
But the reason they're in the vault is that
because she secretly
still likes the Bluefy show, and secretly has a crush on this video game character, and that's why they're in the vault. And she also has a giant monster big secret.
Which doesn't pay off. You sit all the way through the end credits just to find out what that deep dark secret is, and it's not worth sitting through the credits.
No, but
I was a little disappointed, but you know they had to go back there.
I wouldn't tell people to leave.
Still, no, not at all. No, Joy's line is actually funnier because she's like, "Oh, I thought it would have been this," and it's like, all right, that's actually more embarrassing than what the real secret is. But again, like you said, we don't get as much mom and dad in this one, and that's what in the first one, as an adult, as a parent, I loved, because they were just little blips of mom and dad dealing, especially with mom when she walks in to wake up Riley, and Riley has now gone through puberty and wakes up with, full of anxiety and screaming at her and yelling. And then mom's like, well, we knew this day was coming. Yeah.
You go into mom's head and see her crew in her head.
And then the first one, the great, at the end of the movie, you see that in multiple people. And then my favorite is the cat sitting outside on the front porch, and you just cut to the inside of the cat, and there's cats walking around the control panel and just meandering, and then you cut back to the cat going nuts, jumping like someone just spooked him, and I'm like, yeah, that's pretty funny. So stuff like that is not as in your face in this one, but there's a lot of emotions going on here. This is because really are like, oh, this girl, because you see her and they're like, this is not Riley. Why is she making this decision? Because she's being controlled by anxiety.
Yeah. And anxiety is the antagonist, right? But she thinks that she's helping. Riley.
Well, that's just like Joy. This is just like what Joy was doing in the first one, which is, you even as a grown adult, like there are times when your emotions just get the better of you. And you say things that you don't want to say. You do things that you shouldn't be doing. And when she decides to sneak back in to look at the coach's notebook, you're just like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Stop! Go back to bed.
But anxiety goes as far to destroy the sense of self that Riley has created over 13 years and make a new one, because again she thinks she's helping,
hindering her, right? She thinks it's hindering
so her. She uses the memory of Riley turning her back on her friends to create a new sense of self, which is, we know, is not the right direction to go. But in Riley's head, she thinks that doing that, and thanks to anxiety, is going to pave the way for her future in high school. So that's what
of her friends.
Yeah. So that's what Joy and Sadness and the rest of the crew are trying to get back to headquarters to reestablish that original
control,
sense of self.
Right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
We got to steer the ship. Some of these emotions that we saw in the first movie don't have as much to do, because obviously they get sidelined a little bit. But even, I guess anger takes a back seat if anxiety's in control.
Yeah.
And like I said, that heartbreaking moment where you're just like, I guess, as you get older, you just get less joy.
But Joy has a great speech here, or Amy Poehler has a great speech here. I don't always have the answer, she says. And it hurts that Riley is
cries. We actually see her cry. Yeah. Like I said, they go out of their way to whitewash you not once, but twice to get you to cry.
Because when they finally do make it back to HQ, anxiety is like Tasmanian devil going off. Yeah. You can't even see her because she's just panicking. Riley has to make 3 goals, right?
Because the girls tell her, the high school girls tell her, oh, we're having a scrimmage tomorrow, but it really is a test on whether or not the coach will pick you to be on the team. And she's so obsessed with getting on this team. If she can get on this team, she could be best friends with these people. And if she's best friends with these people, then she will have an okay high school experience. Mm-hmm. And that's all she cares about. And so she decides she's going to get up early. She's going to start practicing. And thankfully, they do the right thing here, because she does score 3 goals, but at the expense of her friends and her teammates.
Yeah, she knocks down one of her old friends in the process of getting one of those goals,
and that's where she gets
her.
and that's where she gets stuck in the penalty box, and that's where like everything just comes to culmination. It's just like, this is a long 2 minutes, but this is the fight with the emotions, trying to remove the anxiety crystal that's building this new identity, replace it with the other one. And then Joy realizes they need to destroy both and just let a new one happen.
Yeah, and just let them coexist. Very similar to what happens at the end, as you said, of the first movie.
But it's clear that she does not make it onto the team, which is good, because no, you don't get rewarded for that type of behavior.
No.
So she had to wait a whole year, is my guess. She had to wait a whole year in high school before she actually made it onto the team.
The tears come at Riley's realization once the new sense of self starts building. Riley's realization that she's been terrible to her friends. Yeah. And, the embrace, the crying that they do. And yes, the whitewashing, when you get the bright lights, because not only do they show the white ice and the sun coming through the windows.
Yeah, she literally looks up in the window as the sun comes through.
Yeah.
Blinding her.
And then there's like a big daytime shot after that. So if you haven't already started to cry at that point, then you're physically egged on to cry. But I don't think they needed to do it because I was already there.
Correct. Yeah, no, you're right. You don't need to push that. And there's enough going on here.
In my theater, there was at the 10:30 a.m. showing, like I said, there were many more teen girls than there were little kids. And I heard sobbing all throughout the theater.
I thought maybe they'd be too cool. They'd be like,
no,
stupid jerk. We also get another new emotion, which is nostalgia, which is this old lady, grandma, that just kind of shows up every now and again, and she rambles on and then leaves. I'm like, you're 13. What do you have that's so nostalgic? Wait till you're 50.
Whenever she tries to come out, they're like, oh, it's too early for you yet. Go back in the closet.
Why would you even have that emotion yet? These other ones just showed up, and all of a sudden.
Well, Riley is somebody that still likes, Bluey, so she could be nostalgic about that.
I don't know. I wanted more Bluey. I want more Bloofy and Pouchy.
More characters that. More characters like that as well.
Yeah, no, that was a lot of fun. And Pouchy was a lot of fun.
But at the end, you see all the emotions. After the panic and the turmoil of the climax, you see all the emotions working together. In simpatico. The voiceover, Joy is giving the lead out voiceover. Every bit of Riley makes her what she is, but we love all of our girl. And then you're like, again, oh.
Right.
And these final scenes, like mom and dad come back into it for a little bit. And you do see, like you said, they do have anxiety, but they've suppressed it. And dad just the anxiety comes out to watch the game with everybody else.
All right, back to the game. Because there's a little moments between mom and dad when they're looking at each other, and he's like, she's looking at me. She wants an answer.
So yeah, I think it's a worthy sequel. It is a worthy sequel, and it goes where it needed to go. So you do see Riley start going through puberty here. Again, I hold that first movie so high, it could have never equaled or surpassed it, but I enjoyed it, and it gives you the feels. Just like that first one does.
You know going in. Bring some tissues with you.
Yeah.
They like to play on your heartstrings.
Like we said before, lots of moviegoers are going out and hopefully thinking the same thing coming out of this movie.
Yeah, again, a lot of kids probably, Riley's age watching this for the first time.
Yeah.
And all right, let's go see where she is now. So well done, Pixar.
Yes.
Very, very impressive.
Return to form.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah.
I think some would say that they never lost it, but
it's you can't listen. The first 8 movies that they came out with are all bangers.
Yeah.
So you got to stumble at one point or another, and not every movie's going to speak to you. Not everybody can relate to a robot trapped on a desolate earth,
or elements that live in their own city.
That is true. Oh, look, I'm made of water. My name is Wade. Solid. I'm going to give this 4.5 buckets. I thought this was fantastic.
I did too. I'm going to go just a shy of you, 4.25.
Okay.
If the original is 5 for me, this is right under it, 4.25.
I did see we had some Muppet alumni in there doing some voices. Frank Oz, Dave Gillis, and Kirk Thatcher
as the work guys, right?
Yeah,
the doozers of Riley's brain. Speaking of Fraggle Rock, Anxiety looked an awful lot like Red Fraggle to me.
Yeah, a little frazzled, full of fraggled. So, and as I mentioned, John Ratzenberger is back in there. So, welcome back, sir.
I didn't catch that. What voice?
He was one of the.
He was one of the worker guys.
Yeah, I'm sure he was very surprised to get a phone call.
Oh, I thought you forgot about me.
Yeah, correct.
Now, next time, just bring back that Pizza Planet truck and we're good.
Yeah, right, maybe that's what happened. He took it.
I don't know. Maybe somebody on high said, wait. You can't have more than a few Easter eggs. It's either Ratzenberger or the truck. Yeah, make your choice. So
you can't do both.
All right. Very happy that we went to go see that and covered it.
Yes.
And now, as we go to the concession stand, it is my turn to buy. So I had to come up with something that was simpatico with these two movies that are bookending the concession stand this week.
Brain candy?
I was going for brain candy, yes. Something that spoke to the brain, the skull, the head, somewhere in that region. So what did I do? I looked to a more recent candy. When you actually look at the history of this thing, it's not very recent at all because its origins do lie in the 80s. But it's on shelves today. It's a very popular candy with my son. Airheads.
Airheads. I like it.
Yes. So Airheads, there's a lot of different varieties. And unfortunately, I have a high fructose corn syrup intolerance, as we've gone over on this show before.
That sucks.
So a lot of chewy candies I can't eat, like gummy bears, if it has high fructose corn syrup. Abdominal pains like you wouldn't believe. There are a couple of different varieties of Airheads that don't contain high fructose corn syrup, so I was able to sample, and that is the Airhead Bites. Now, for those of you who are only, somewhat familiar with Airheads, you might think of them as that long taffy package. So my son is the expert, so I'm turned off by taffy. It goes way back to my days of having braces, because taffy is just too sticky. For 3 or 4 years I was unable to eat it, so I've just kind of stayed away from it from that point on, because I don't like how it sticks to my fingers, I don't like how it sticks to my teeth, and then I imagine it sticking to my large intestine as well.
With all your hubba bubba bubble gum stuck in there.
Yeah, so I've always thought of Airheads as taffy, and in a way, it is taffy in a way.
Right.
As my son explained it to me, it's more like a stretched out Starburst. Now, Starburst is different than taffy, right? It's kind of self-contained. It is sticky in a way, but it's not as sticky as a taffy experience is. And Airheads is like that. He kind of described it as the normal Airhead being like a stretched out, lengthier Starburst, less sticky, with a kind of soury taste. Although there is an extreme version of Airheads, which is like a ribbon, a rectangular rainbow with sour sugar on it that's even more sour. But for the purposes of this show, I sampled the Airhead Bite, which is like a Skittle. It's got a hard candy shell, but with Airhead in the middle of it, and it was addictive. 5 flavors. There was orange, cherry, blue raspberry, watermelon, which was fantastic, and white mystery. And when generally there's a mystery flavor in any candy, all that means is it's just a mixture of all the others.
Right.
So Airheads, history. It was invented by Steve Bruner. He submitted the plans. He worked for the Van Mel company, which is known today as Pervetti Van Mel, which is an Italian-Dutch hybrid company. So Steve Bruner in August 1985 came up with the graphic design, the name, and hence the IP of Airheads. And this company is out of Kentucky. Their main product up to that point was Mentos. So that's an out-of-the-box success, right? So they want to replicate that. What Van Mel was working on at the time was a flat fruit chew sandwiched between 2 pieces of edible rice paper. Lipton was interested in putting a marketing push behind this. Lipton is, a separate company than Van Mel, but they had longer arms than Van Mel did. But they had a similar product that they were working on called Fruit Wrinkles. So
Wrinkles.
Lipton were unsure of what product to go with, their own. It just goes to show how much faith they had in this, that they were thinking of pushing somebody else's product instead of their own. So they had all these marketing taste tests between the two products, and they found that people were turned off by the rice paper that sandwiched the fruit chew. So
Rightfully so.
So Lipton ended up going with their own Fruit Wrinkles. So now Van Mel, who had such a boost that Lipton was about to distribute them, had all this machinery that were going to make these fruit things that they came up with. So now, okay, what did Van Mel have without the rice paper? The fruit chew in the middle, if they were to stretch that out, make it a bar, that's where Airheads came from. This rejected rice paper fruit chew, kind of a concoction. Take out the rice paper, what do you have? A blob that they could then stretch out into like a rectangular taffy shape. So it was up to Steve Bruner at that point to come up with the name, come up with the graphic design. So in coming up with the name Airheads, he looked to kids. And Airheads in the 80s was a big insult between kids. You're an airhead. I don't know if you remember that, but I do.
I don't know.
I remember that term.
I remember using the A word, but it wasn't air.
So not only did he come up with the term Airheads, which tested great with kids, right? Because, of course, you got to put this through marketing tests before you put it out. But he also came up with the balloon character that to this day is on the Airhead packaging. So the red balloon is kind of the character. I don't think it has a name, but that's the character that you will find, the mascot, if
the
you
little
will,
balloon guy, yeah,
of Airheads. And unfortunately, just like when you're working for any big company, that IP is now owned by the company rather than the guy who came up with it. But he takes credit for coming up with all that stuff. So it is really passed the test of time because it still exists today as a very popular candy on shelves. There's those main flavors that I mentioned before, but there's also some that are outside the box for different promotional purposes. There's a maple flavor that exists only in Canada. I'd love to try that. Other ones include pink lemonade, strawberry lime, salted watermelon, birthday cake, cotton candy bubblegum, mango chill, and there's others. They've come out with special edition ice creams. So Airheads. So I recommend it for anybody who is kind of shies away from what looks like very garish candy and usually picks the more traditional stuff. Because if you're a fan of Skittles, I think it'll do you good to go out of your way and search for Airheads Bites. So there you have it, Airheads.
Okay, on your recommendation.
Yes.
Alrighty.
All right, so we'll move from the concession stand to 1983, the summer.
1983.
Now, this movie, The Man with Two Brains, was released in June of 1983, June 6th, only weeks, maybe 1 week after Return of the Jedi. Am I not wrong about that?
April, May.
Was that a Memorial Day release, Return of the Jedi?
I think all three of them were released around the 25th.
So Jedi was still in theaters when Man with Two Brains came out.
No wonder why I didn't see it.
Well, it was rated R. I wouldn't have been able to get into it at the time. I was 12 years old.
There's a couple questionable things that go on here that you're just like, what am I watching here?
It earns its R rating. Thankfully, I did not watch this with my 13-year-old son. Although we just did the last week watch The Three Amigos with him for the first time, which he loved. Yes.
That's funny because I was looking this up. So yeah, that window. So we talk about The Jerk, coming out in 79. Steve Martin just out of the gate was just all over the place.
Well, we knew Steve Martin, 70s kids knew Steve Martin from The Muppet Show, right? Because he had a very, one of the best episodes of The Muppet Show that there is. He had that comedy album, Wild and Crazy Guy, that
that was actually came out what 78.
yes, and
Okay.
not a kid's album by any means.
But I'll tell you right now, that was one of my original 12 Columbia House record.
Yeah,
And I had it on cassette. And there's a couple Grandpa bought a rubber. And I'm like,
and I had no idea what that meant.
no, of course.
I still thought it was funny.
No, because it's all in his delivery.
Yeah.
And we saw him do King Tut on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, and that was on the album. King Tut was on the album.
Yeah, which is so he was in Sergeant Pepper, which was 78.
Yes, and he was also in the Muppet movie, 79.
Which was 79.
Yeah,
he quit stand up in 81.
Did he really?
Walked away from it. Yeah. But then, like we said, 82 was Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid. 83 was this movie. 84, All of Me. 86, Three Amigos. So again, this guy was just off and running.
When he was Pennies from Heaven as well, right?
Pennies from Heaven. Yeah. We could go through his entire. Have you watched Only Murders in the Building?
Yes, I have.
Okay. On Hulu. Still relevant.
Yeah, and it's still funny. Still funny.
There's actually
unfortunately, even back in the 70s, because of his white hair, I thought he was like an old guy even then.
Yeah. Apple Plus has a documentary in 2 pieces, which is actually very well done on his entire history. So
Man with Two Brains. So this was, if not near the height of his initial fame, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because he really went into a different strata when The Jerk came out, because then now he was like a movie star as well as a very well-known comedian. Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid, like I said before, that was kind of a niche thing, although I thought it was funny.
I can't tell you the last time I saw it.
And then this, which I never saw before this viewing, unbelievably.
That's crazy.
So.
Yeah.
So what did you watch it on? Did you watch it streaming or did you get it from your library?
No, I had DVD from the library.
You did. Okay. Was it? Because mine was on one side, The Man with Two Brains, on the other side, My Blue Heaven, which is him and Rick Moranis.
Yeah. No, this was just straight up a movie. There was no features. There was nothing.
Yeah, there was nothing on mine.
You pop it in and it just immediately starts playing. It is not even a menu.
Did it say that this movie has been formatted to fit your screen at the beginning of it?
It did not.
It did. Mine did.
Mine did it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's how old it is, huh? No, it looked pretty good. It looked pretty good for all things considered, being a DVD.
But this is what you want in a Steve Martin movie. I think this is just ridiculous from beginning to end.
It is ridiculous and there's a lot going on here. There's a lot of sight gags. There's a lot of I think as a kid probably I dismissed it like this is just stupid. There's a lot to like.
There's a lot to chuckle about. If you pay attention to this, there's a lot to chuckle over this.
I mean, just the way, his character's name, Dr. Michael which is a running joke that, it's a hard. Yeah. But there's so many throwaway lines that you just don't even have time to kind of like digest them.
Yeah. And again, I've hit this over the head to the point of exhaustion, but if you watch this with subtitles, I did catch things that I wouldn't have caught.
I did not watch this with subtitles. I just dove in, and it just right off the bat, you've got him in a car. He's a famous brain surgeon with this biographer that's interviewing him. Yeah, as a plot device to get you to know this guy. Yeah, it's given you kind of like reader notes, but it's being juxtaposed with this scene of Kathleen Turner with her husband, and she may or may not have poached his angelfish, and they get into a fight. It's a really odd opening.
And she's like, married to this very rich old man. So, she's a gold digger right out of the bat. Yeah. So, and she's trying to egg him on like, oh, I love it when your temple, I can see the veins coming out of your temples. Yep.
But he has this moment in the car where he talks about his ex-wife or ex-girlfriend. And you're like, is this supposed to be his ex-wife? Like, there was a weird, like, I don't know what's going on here.
But then he's got like a little Barbie doll of her on the dashboard, and
the guy's like, "Is that her?"
Said, "Is that her?" No, that's just a statue.
Right. But again, these are the stupid little throwaway lines. And then these two storylines literally collide.
The old guy has a heart attack, much to Kathleen Turner's delight, because now, she's a widow and has all his money. And then Steve Martin accidentally runs her over because she runs into the street after she drops that guy with a heart attack, her husband.
Not so much it runs her over, he catapults her into space.
Yeah, like a Little Rascals worthy, or a Muppets worthy, throw up into the air. Yeah.
Yes. But again, this is where, this poor woman's laying on the ground, probably dead. He's a doctor. He's a brain surgeon. So there's a little girl standing on the side of the road, and he goes over and he goes, little girl, you gotta go and call this number. And then it's like 12 paragraphs of information.
Yeah. He's like, ask for the ER. Tell him I have this case. Now give him this code number. And she repeats it back to him.
Yeah. Brilliant.
And, so I read, maybe you read this too, but I read an interview with Carl Reiner about this movie. How everybody says to him when discussing this movie, if somebody, because this is not the movie that people will first discuss with him.
Right.
But if you've got a weirdo that comes up, well, I want to talk about the man with two brains, they always bring up this scene. Did you have a cue card for this girl because she's only 4 years old?
Yeah. Nope.
They did it in one take.
Crazy.
And she memorized it.
And she just matter of fact reads it back.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
You alluded to this before, as he's giving this interview in the car before he hits Kathleen Turner's character, you see him flash back to one of his brain surgeries. And again, it's like, I don't know if these were real things that he was asking for or just ridiculous made up things. Yeah. I don't want to embarrass myself by thinking it was funny that he's asking for these weird tools when they're actual tools. But at one point he says, get that cat out of here. And you hear a meow.
Yeah. And that happens multiple times. It's a running gag where he's just in surgery. And get that cat out of here.
Yeah. And yes, there are jokes that don't land, that are, eye-rollingly stupid. Like the one scene where his two interns or nurses are shaving Kathleen Turner's
nether regions.
Hoo-ha, right.
Right. He's like,
and he's like, what are you doing?
Surgery.
Like, we're doing brain surgery. And one of those guys is Jeffrey Combs from Reanimator. If you recognized him. Yeah.
That's pretty wild.
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty funny. So they don't shave her head at all. But he's notorious, like he has patented this cranial screw top Ziploc brain surgery.
Right. You see a close-up of Kathleen Turner's face on the operating table, and you see that the hair, as you hear like what sounds like a jar being screwed.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. But even like this, the sight gags when he's getting ready to go into surgery and he's wearing the bunny ears, which is one of his, I think it was actually on the cover of one of the albums.
The Wild and Crazy Guy. Yeah.
Yeah. The one, right up there. Like, I'm surprised they didn't just go with the arrow through the head. But
and then as he's doing the operation, there's a close up of her bare breast. And that wasn't even a joke. I'm like, what was the point of showing?
Oh, I know. Yeah. Can you cover her up? Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just nipple for the sake of seeing nipple. So she pulls out of it. He saves her life. And so he's falling in love with her.
Or falling in lust with her is more like
okay, fair enough.
Yeah. Then there's there's another kind of dumb scene when he's talking to his wife's painting.
Dude, this is the first time I laughed out loud because his dead wife, he's got this huge shrine to her. And he's like, if you don't like this, give me a sign.
And all of a sudden, there's an earthquake and the painting rips.
Spinny. Yeah.
He goes, and you hear, no.
Right. Any sign? Anything? No? Okay.
Yep.
And then he promises, he goes, our poem that we had together, I'll never read it for her. And then immediately buys in the book and reads it.
The next scene, yeah.
I'm like, this guy's a jerk.
My favorite line in this, what made me laugh out loud, was when he drives her home, right, for the first time.
Okay.
And she looks at the servants that are in front of on the porch, and she goes, who are those assholes on the porch?
Right.
That's not pronounced assholes, those are pronounced azaleas, those flowers.
But again, even like in the surgery, they keep cutting to the people in the viewing room, and Lone Ranger and Tonto are just standing there for no other reason than just Lone Ranger and Tonto are just standing there among these other people. It's never explained,
Right. You don't need to in a Steve Martin movie like this.
I guess
it's just sight gags. It's just sight gag after sight gag. And then he carries her across the threshold. I want this moment to last forever. And then 24 hours later, he's still standing there with her.
Okay.
And he's like, did you take the picture? Yes, I've gotten them developed as well.
Right. And of course, they're like married for 6 weeks. They have yet to consummate. So there's a boner joke with a hat and a glass.
And she has no intention of ever sleeping with him either. It's clear that she's just married to him as her next means of income.
She collect anything from the old guy?
I assume that she did.
But yeah, she keeps leading him on. And there is a weird scene early on when he goes to visit her in the hospital room and she's sucking on his finger.
Yes.
And that's where I was like, what am I watching here? What is this? But we're alluded that there's an elevator killer on the loose.
So people end up going into the elevator and then they show up on their floor dead. So
this is the 4th brain stolen this month. So it's like people are stealing brains. It's like, what? So you think you're getting one kind of movie, then all of a sudden they're in Austria and there's a brain thief.
And this is where we meet David Warner as Dr. Alfred Necessiter.
You walk into his apartment and it's like a medieval castle.
Yeah, but it's a condo.
It's a condo. He's like, these walls are paper thin. And the lady's yelling at him through the wall, complete with a moat and an alligator.
And literal leaping lizards. So that made me laugh because Steve Martin at one point says, leaping lizards. Oh, yeah, I've got those.
Yeah, I got them. Yeah. And Dr. Necessiter is collecting brains.
Yes, and he lets
he's got to be the brain killer. He's got to be the elevator killer.
Well, he reveals it. He reveals, doesn't he reveal it quite early that he's just like the guy's working for me. He brings me the bodies, and then I take the brains
follow after him and take the brains. And he's got this special fluids to keep these brains alive.
Mm-hmm.
And I think at one point, Steve Martin, he's like, the only time we should accept death is by our own incompetence. Like it's just like. So
then he falls in love with one of the brains in the jars there, because what was her name?
Oh, Anne.
Yeah, but it was a name like his.
Oh yeah, the last name is some ridiculous.
Umalamahe, like her.
She was brain number 21.
She was brain number 21, voiced by Sissy Spacek.
Uncredited. Who gave her this? Who was like, you know what would be funny? But yeah, this brain is catfishing him the entire time. So is she just like, are they talking psychically?
They are. It's telepathy, because at one point he asks Necessiter if he can hear that. And he says, no, I can't. So they can only speak to each other. And from that point on, you know where this movie is going in terms of where this brain is. But it takes an hour to get there.
Yeah, Kathleen Turner is just C-blocking him at every turn. And so, yeah. And I actually wrote in my notes, what's funny about 6 months of tease? Like, it's poor man.
But there is a great scene where he's having endless fight scenes with Kathleen Turner. And he picks up a vase and he throws it down to smash it, and it bounces off the ground. Oh, an Indian rubber vase.
Stupid. But then he screams that they're that's it. The marriage is over. It's null. It's void. E pluribus in him. And yet he keeps going back to her. But yeah, he's all in on this brain now. They sing at one point. I don't know what's going on.
And my wife pointed out that the song that they sing is the same song that's sung in The Jerk. So there's a through line going. And also the name Hufferer, the doctor's name, is because I just saw Three Amigos, is what Steve Martin says there, because there's one scene where the three amigos are coming up with magic words for whatever purpose, and that's the magic word that Steve Martin says.
Interesting. All right. It's a shared universe now.
Yeah, it is.
Wow, they were ahead of the curve. Marvel.
And then, of course, we get Bentley from the Jeffersons as Necessiter's butler. Yeah. And also one of the best lines in it. Sir, it's late. I'm going to retire. Really? You're so young. But
this Anne's brain, she's a little horny. She's a little minx.
She is. And then there's one scene where he takes her out rowing and he puts rubber lips on the jar.
and Dolores calls him out. She goes, Michael, were you out on a lake in a rowboat kissing a brain in a jar? Are you sure that was me? It's like...
Dr. Necessiter this is almost like Conga, the movie Conga. He's got the worst fake gorilla in his lab.
Dr. Beckerman's brain he put in the gorilla.
Yeah.
That might have been
because Anne's brain 21 to him, is about to expire because they only have a certain shelf life. He's about to switch out Beckerman's brain. I don't know why he's switching out Beckerman's brain into the gorilla. And then Steve Martin's like, gorilla, I can't
Right. That's like a deal breaker for him. This is like an internet romance where you just, you can text whatever you want. Yeah. But we also get James Cromwell, and I think his very first performance.
Or at least a very early performance.
As the weird Austrian realtor.
So then once he realizes that Anne's brain is dying, he doesn't want her put into a gorilla, so he's got to find a body for her. And again, you're like, there's Kathleen Turner's right there.
I felt this is like Poor Things with Emma Stone, which is the most obvious thing is not where they go.
Yeah, until the very, very end of the movie.
All right, this woman that you're lusting after is a jerk. Just replace her brain, kill her. Put your girlfriend's brain in there.
So nope, but before he comes to that realization,
he's got to find some hookers.
Yeah, he goes out on the street trying to find a suitable body to put Anne's brain in. And because he knows that the elevator killer is using window cleaner,
paint in the glass. Just, again, a throwaway line. At the end of the movie, they go out of their way to set up this elaborate pinball machine sight gag. Lasts for a second. But there's a lot of work that goes into it just for this payoff. Because
Kathleen Turner actually is killed by the elevator killer. And the reveal is that the elevator killer is Merv Griffin. Merv Griffin playing himself.
Merv Griffin, what are you doing here?
Now, this was confusing. I have a feeling that there was like a scene or dialogue cut out because
that was missing.
During the end sequence, when they're putting the brain in Kathleen Turner, and then Michael goes out the wall into the pool below, and Warner says, "Oh, he's dead."
Right.
And then in the next scene, he's alive.
He's alive.
The hospital. Yeah.
It didn't make any sense either. He is alive in the hospital, and when he comes to, he realizes that Anne's brain is now in Dolores and she's up and running, but we have to end on a fat joke.
Kathleen Turner in a fat suit saying that Anne has a compulsive eating disorder. Steve Martin's character says he does not care. It ends on a happy note.
His back's not feeling it though. He's trying to carry her through the
there was a lengthy end joke of him trying to carry her through the threshold.
And I think he does that same weird sight gag in every one of his movies. Yes.
So as we said, this was one of a series of movies he did with director Carl Reiner. This was only after David Cronenberg turned it down.
That's crazy. Like why would you think that David Cronenberg would be your ideal director for this movie?
I know, and Cronenberg was like, I don't do comedies. It's
right. It's like Martin walks out of Scanners. He's like, that's the guy to film this movie, and he's like, no, I'm not. No.
This was only Kathleen Turner's second movie after Body
Double. And I think the reason she wanted this was because she was only being offered roles like that one, Body Double, which was a much more sultry.
But yet, this came out the same year as Romancing the Stone. So she was well on her way after that. Breaking that stereotype.
It's good. Oh, we forgot the part where they got into the fight and he throws her outside. He goes, into the mud, scum queen. It's just like, that's a little much. If you kill me, you'll never work in this town again. Okay.
Although Kathleen Turner, talking about her being typecast as a sex bomb, this was the only movie where she ever used a body double for a nude scene.
Was that for the nipple?
No, for the butt scene.
That's right, the buttocks.
She said that she just thought it was a stupid scene and didn't think it was funny, and she was right. I didn't think it was funny either.
She was willing to wear that outfit though, just not the close up of the buttocks.
Bizarre thing is that it was never released in theaters in the UK. It took until 1986 for it to come out there, and even then it went straight to video. So Maybe they just didn't get the humor. Who knows?
At the behest of Merv Griffin, he's like, don't release this.
Perhaps. It was a relative hit in the US, thinking that it was up against like other big 83 movies like Vacation, which came out around the same time. On an 8 million budget, it made around 30 million at the box office. So not too bad.
Not too bad.
Not an out of the box hit, but still it made back its money. And Necessiter's castle/condo, there's a sign in it called Castle Hundedrick, which is a German word for dog poop.
It's so childish. It
is, but I enjoyed it. I did. I thought it was, stupidly funny. So
it is definitely. Like I said, as a kid, I don't think I appreciated watching this. It was just like, it's not the level of like Airplane, where it is sight gag on top of sight gag, and you're just it's a barrage. So, but it's funny because All of Me, you mentioned All of Me, which came out the following year, is pretty much the same concept. It's just Lily Tomlin's character, I think, is a ghost that inhabits half his body.
Yeah, so
you get a lot of
disembodied.
You get a disembodied voice, so he's allowed to do those wacky, trying to walk as two different people in one body kind of a thing. And I guess that's that was a shtick.
Yeah, and I think that spoke in some way to Steve Martin, because I think that he was a fan of like sci-fi brain movies.
Yeah.
So just like the Doctor in this movie. But yeah, I thought it was dumb. I thought it was better than I thought it was going to be. Let's put it that way.
There you go. All right. So low expectations, mildly amused.
Yeah. So I think I would give this, out of 5 buckets, 3.5. Just for the surprise factor of how funny I did think it was.
Yes. Some of them really do land with a thud. And I think it's just, especially the Merv Griffin, like nobody knows. Nobody knows who Merv Griffin is, but we're all there. We're of a certain age.
I think it would have been actually funnier if the elevator killer was the butler, was Bentley from the Jeffersons.
The Jeffersons, yeah. I don't know. We'll never know. 3. I'm gonna go 3. Yeah, 3 out of 5. So goofy, for sure.
The Man with Two Brains.
There you go.
So, all right. So what else did we do this week?
I want to talk The Acolyte.
Is that out yet? I didn't even
First 2 episodes dropped on Disney Plus. The third just dropped the other day. I'm going to hold off. I will say this, though. There are multitudes of trolls that are having none of this. The Star Wars fandom has just become so toxic, and I'm not going to get into it. I want to just kind of ride it out, and I'll watch the series. Listen, I know people who hate, crap on Rogue One, who, don't like Andor. And I'm like, well, then don't watch it. That's fine. There's plenty of Star Wars stuff out there that you can read and watch and play video game wise. You don't have to be into everything. I haven't watched every Marvel show. That's fine. So I'm going to hold off, and especially since you don't know anything about it or haven't seen. There's a lot of crying that episode 3 kind of breaks canon, but apparently that's not the case. But that's all I'm going to say. What I do want to talk about is last night I found on Netflix a documentary, Remembering Gene Wilder. And
I've seen that. I've seen that on my feed.
Next week, and then we kind of talked about Gene Wilder a little bit. There was a lot of Mel Brooks in this doc, and I have to say it's amazing the amount of talent that man surrounded himself with, and yet he's still going, and they are all gone. It's insane. I met Gene Wilder once in my life in Stanford. They were doing a screening of The Producers, and he came in, was gracious, did a Q&A with the audience afterwards. There was a lady there who wanted nothing, like she was just peppering him with 0 most-style questions. We're here to talk to Gene. So he graciously took pictures with me and my nerdy friends and signed my Young Frankenstein DVD.
Oh,
so fantastic. And there's a lot that this really does get deep into like his whole history. And one of the really weird things was is that I guess his mom was sick when he was a kid, and the doctors told him, "Don't ever get into a fight with your mom. You may kill her."
Oh.
It's like, oh, what do you tell a kid like that? Don't make your mom angry. What is she, the Hulk? So, anyways, so he would constantly try and make her laugh. So, it just says a lot about this guy as a person. But they get deep into a lot of the movies, and especially the Frisco Kid, which I loved with Harrison Ford. And and I actually misquote when I first met him, and I said the Cisco Kid, and he corrected me. And to this day, I kicked myself that I had an opportunity to. It wasn't a movie, again, it was something that showed up on HBO back in the day in the 70s, and I would watch it ad nauseum. And wasn't available on VHS. It wasn't available on DVD or anything like that. And I misquoted the name of the movie, and he corrected me, so I felt like a jerk.
What did you call it?
I called it the Cisco Kid, or it's the Frisco Kid, because he comes from San Francisco. He's a Orthodox Jew, and he has got a pair up with Harrison Ford as a cowboy. So yeah, it's on Netflix right now. I wish he had come up with a better name than Remembering Gene Wilder.
Then during that
thanks
moment,
for reminding us that he's dead.
During that moment, if you cut to what's inside your head, embarrassment is fully
correct.
at the controls. Yeah.
Anxiety is losing its mind. You're an idiot. The picture with me and him is just my eyes are as big as saucers because it's Gene Wilder I'm standing next to. So, but so there you go.
Cisco Kid. Good day, sir.
Yes, good day, sir. And we were told afterwards that he must have been in a good mood because they did a screening with him like the year prior where they showed Willy Wonka, and he would only interact with the children. Want nothing to do with the adults. So I think I caught him in a good mood that day, and I will forever cherish that moment. That's
a great story.
So what'd you do?
I didn't do much, so maybe I thought we could discuss the trailers that we watched before.
Oh yes, we did see some trailers.
Inside Out too. Couple of big Disney ones. The first and foremost, Moana 2.
Now, aren't we getting a live action Moana? Didn't we hear that Dwayne Johnson is actually playing Maui?
I did hear that. Hear that.
So we're getting a sequel to the animated movie, as well as a live action,
which I would assume would be just a retread of the first Moana in live action.
The live action, I would assume.
Yeah.
So why both? Either continue the story or move on. And
speaking of live action Disney movies, the other Disney preview we saw was the prequel to The Lion King, Mufasa's story. But
I'm thinking live action. You can't call it live action. They're all CG. They're all animated.
But here's the thing: is that I do know that maybe technically this is not a prequel to the '94 movie, but a prequel to the other CG movie. But do it in 2D. How many more people would come out to see this movie if it was like done in the animation style of? How about you come up with a different story, because it just looks like Simba's story? Yeah, it does. Oh, look, he's frolicking not in an elephant graveyard, but with a bunch of hippos or something. Mm-hmm. It doesn't look any different than what we already saw happen with Simba. I imagine that there's going to be some, Scar turmoil, animosity, Scar issues. Yeah. Oh, look, the brothers don't get along. And we'll see how he was scarred. That's true. Yeah, it's true. I hope it was from a flirkin. That would be great. Just merge these universes together. Hey, they own all the IP, right. So they could do it. I got it. Mufasa in space. So what else did you see besides those two? One or two, Mufasa. There was like a robot movie, right? A robot. I forget what the name of it was. The wild robot or the. Yeah, that's the one. I didn't see it. I've seen that trailer a couple times now, and I think it looks fantastic. It looks very stylistically looks like the Iron Giant, that robot. Yeah, and it's all pretty much silent, and yet there's just a litany of voice actors that are listed at the end, and I'm like,
It's like a 10-minute commercial. It's like, you've already shown me way too much.
There wasn't many, but they were all animated.
Oh,
features.
my wife was beside herself sitting through all these commercials. She's like, really? It's just going on forever. I said, that's what
you got to accept it. That's
I know. She was getting mad at me because I would have left half an hour earlier than we did. I just want to get there. I want to
tell her that she's lucky that as of yet they don't make commercials throughout the movie like they do on Tubi and some other things.
Oh, don't give anybody any ideas.
Yeah.
All of a sudden it just cuts the.
Yeah, you want people to stop going to the theater? Do that.
Yeah. I can't remember any other trailers, but you're right. They're all animated because obviously you're catering to
that crowd.
Disney,
yeah.
the Disney crowd.
In other Disney news, I can give you some Disney park news on the back end here. They are closing down Test Track this weekend. As we record this, they are closing down the iconic Test Track ride at Epcot because they're completely retooling it. They are going back to the drawing board.
It is now going to be Bad Boys.
Yes, yeah. Martin Lawrence is going to be in your ear. Mother.
When you get to the end, Will Smith just smacks you. You never living that down.
A lot of people hope that what they're doing with Test Track is bringing it back to somewhat what it used to be in the opening days of Epcot when that ride was called World of Motion.
Yes.
And it was more so like a history of transportation, but with, it was a dark ride, slow moving dark ride that brought you through, animatronic scenes of the history of transportation. And some, still are crying for the old days of Epcot when all the rides were like that. So,
well, always moving forward, right?
Always moving forward. And in other Disney ride news, they just opened that new ride that's based on The Princess and the Frog that took over for Splash Mountain.
Oh, that's right. Yes. Tiana's Bayou?
Tiana's Bayou Adventure, I think it's called. And I've seen some of the animatronics in this thing, and wow, they have come so far. And
yeah, I have seen some of that. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and we are going in August of this year, so just in a couple of months. So I will be able to go on that, and I'm also going to be going on the Tron Light Cycle ride. So
that's exciting because that actually looks really good.
Yeah.
That looks fun.
So in order to get ready, I've never seen Princess and the Frog, so I'm going to have to watch that.
What?
Never seen Princess and the Frog. Never. So we'll have to watch that, and I'm going to have to show my son Tron so he can be ready for that ride.
Oh, if you're going to watch Tron, you have to watch Legacy as well, which I think is a pretty decent follow-up.
Maybe we can work Tron somehow into our schedule. So
I think we can always find an excuse. Oh, Beetlejuice was the another.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm on board. I'm so on board. We didn't talk about Inside Out. We didn't get any Bing Bong. I guess he was wiped.
Yeah.
He was wiped from her memory whatsoever.
I was hoping that maybe since they were in the vault, that's where you were going to find him.
Yeah, no Bing Bong.
No, not even a mention of Bing Bong.
No, he's been completely eradicated.
Unless there was like a really quick Easter egg that I didn't notice. But
I didn't see it, but
which is okay, because they did. It would have been a cheat. It would have been a cheat if they, because he was wiped. That was the big emotional moment at the end of the first movie. The saying goodbye to her childhood by wiping him from her memory. So it would have been a cheat to bring him back. So I understand.
Yeah. And again, there was a lot going on with those other characters. So.
All right. So what are we doing next time?
What are we doing next time? Oh, we got to be quiet.
We do. Maybe we shouldn't talk about this. It'll just be a silent episode.
We should just show up and not talk for an hour and a half.
We'll still have the opening, our big epic theme, but then after that, it'll just fade to nothing.
Just fade it. And every time you go to say something, you just go, shh, shh. That usually is louder than me actually trying to talk. Stop shushing me. Shh. If this really happens, I will die in the first 5 minutes. A Quiet Place, day one.
There are so many inherent problems with this this whole idea. First of all, if these things are so acutely aware of sound, wouldn't like a heartbeat they'd be able to hear?
Interesting.
Yes, you'd
You're
be
already
dead.
poking holes in it. 3 movies later, you're still poking holes.
All these movies are so fun for me to talk about just because I find them utterly ridiculous, and I love bringing up these points. So I'm looking forward to this, actually.
These are probably the same. These are like friends of the aliens that came down in signs. They're like, what do you mean there's water all over the place? Shit, we're not going to survive. These guys are like, shh.
You mean that's what that blue stuff was when we were
correct. It's an odd surface.
Yeah. So yeah, we're doing A Quiet Place Day 1. Is that what the name of it is? Day 1?
It is called Day 1. Yeah.
Okay.
Because I was calling it Quiet Place 2, oblivious to the fact that we already covered the second movie.
Maybe because it's Day 1, we'll find out who's printing that damn newspaper that we see in the first movie.
Yeah, and guess what? A printing press is going to be a lot of noise. Unless you got Ben Franklin over there hand pressing these things.
So we're doing that, and we considered other alien invasion movies, to pair with A Quiet Place Day 1. But then again, high concept here, people. Outside the box.
Concepts.
Outside the box thinking with this. There is an actual movie, in modern times, mind you, not going back to in the 20s, that is completely silent. And what we're talking about is Mel Brooks' silent movie.
Now that you mentioned that, we should have done Metropolis. That's high on my list. That is a silent movie.
Yeah.
But no, we are going high concept, as you said. Mel Brooks, Dom DeLuise, Marty Feldman.
Silent movie. What is this, 78, 79?
Paul Newman, 70, I want to say 79.
Okay.
Cavalcade of guest stars that show up in this movie.
Yeah.
This is a movie that I watched a lot of times in that 78, 79 on HBO. I think it's 76.
Well, we'll see. We'll have all the info for you next time.
We have yet to do our homework. But yes, there is one spoken line of dialogue in this whole movie, and it is from, do you know?
Was it Marty Feldman?
No, it's Marcel Marceau.
Oh, that's right.
I get the joke. He's a mime.
Yep.
Mel Brooks, effing genius. So yeah, I'm excited to talk about this.
Yeah.
And then this happened, and it was funny. And this happened, and it was also funny. Oh, we'll hopefully bring
not so funny.
Yeah, correct. This one didn't hold up well. So hopefully we can bring more to the table than that. But,
yeah. All right, thanks for listening.
Yes, thank you very much. Go check out Inside Out 2. Bye.
Bye, everybody.